feeling hot and sweaty, couldn't get cooled off too soon. I wandered down to Barton Springs, felt the cold, clear water flow, down to Town Lake, to the river, to the Gulf of Mexico. In the heart of this fair city, in the middle of this cool town, the queen of Central Texas swimming holes, the jewel in the violet crown. We owe a debt of gratitude to the man who staked his claim, and the legacy he left to us, and the creeks that bear his name. I stopped a while at Twin Falls, let the water soothe my soul. Stopped a while at Twin Falls, Mother Nature soothed my soul. The water washed my cares away, and I watched them as they flowed down to Town Lake, to the river, to the Gulf of Mexico. I was hiking down by Barton Creek in the morning sun's first glow. Hiking down by Barton Creek in the morning sun's first glow. I dropped a rock into the stream and I watched the ripples flow down to Town Lake, to the river, to the Gulf of Mexico. Down to Town Lake, to the river, to the Gulf of Mexico. From Town Lake to the river, to the Gulf of Mexico. Those of you who've lived here for more than 5 minutes realize that I wrote that song a long, long, long time ago, because it's now Lady Bird Lake. It's not Town Lake, but it didn't fit, so I left it the way it was. Here's the second of the Austin-centric songs. It's called River City Rhythm. I got the River City Rhythm. I got it right down to my bones. I got the River City Rhythm. Got it right down to my bones. Comes from deep in the heart of Texas, where the Longhorn makes his home. Oh, Dallas got the cowboys, Waxahachie's got the fair. Oh, Dallas got the cowboys, Waxahachie's got the fair. Oh, but Austin's got the music, you can feel it in the air. Oh, Houston's got the Astros, Brownsville's got the Rio Grande. Oh, Houston's got the Astros, Brownsville's got the Rio Grande. San Antonio's got the Alamo, Howard Austin's got the bands. You know, they got the university, they got the Capitol too. They got more music venues than you could ever want. They got 6th Street too. I got the River City Rhythm. I got it right down to my shoes. I got the River City Rhythm. Got it right down to my shoes. People love their country western. I keep my rhythm and blues. River City rhythm. I got it right down to my shoes. I got the River City rhythm, got it right down to my shoes. People love their country western. I keep my River City blues. I figure after this you can go visit one of the bars, listen to some real music. All right, so this is a voter positive rally. This means that I assume everybody here is registered to vote. There is one more thing that you can do. If everybody's walking around going, gee, what can I do? You can become a voter registrar, which means that you can sign up people to vote. You probably have to ask them if they're already registered, but that's neither here nor there. You can help get more people out to vote by becoming a volunteer voter registrar. Simplest thing in the world. Bruce Elfant, the county tax assessor, has a Zoom meeting going on tomorrow morning, I believe it's at 10, where you can investigate how to become a voter registrar. And I humbly recommend that those of you who are looking for just a little bit more that you can do, that you go ahead and do that. Right now I'm going to have a drink of water, and then I'm going to keep going.
And if you are not registered to vote at your current address, there is a voter registrar down there to help you out. We want to keep you voted in your districts, in your areas, so let Angela know.
Where's Oscar?
Test. All right, I turned it off. I didn't turn it on. I turned it off. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Adrian Shelley. I am the Texas Office Director of Public Citizen. Appreciate you guys braving what might have been the rain and turned out to be the heat to be with us today. It's good to see everybody here on the 56th anniversary of the passage of the Voting Rights Act. And at a time when here, unfortunately, our democracy is under threat like it never has been before. We have a great lineup today, and we have had an amazing coalition of organizations put this event together. I would like to say thank you specifically to Common Cause, Progress Texas, the Austin NAACP, the Office of Representative Gina Hinojosa, the Sierra Club Lone Star Chapter, Texas for All, Jolt Action, Move Texas, the AFL-CIO, and Texas Rising. Thank you also to everybody else who has come together to make this event happen, specifically thinking about Michael Coleman with Public Citizen here, Karen Shirk with Move On, the State Preservation Board, including Virginia and Robert, Austin Event Lighting, Nomad Sound, and Right Round LLC over there off to the side. This event is intended for people who are vaccinated, who are wearing their masks, and who will practice social distancing. So please be safe, be responsible. There is a table at the corner right there where we have water and we have masks. We want you to have fun, but we want you to be safe. We are here for two reasons today. One, to thank all of our courageous lawmakers who fled to Washington, D.C. in order to put an end to the suppression session, which ends today. We're going to hear from them in a little while on the big screen here. And also to ask Congress to pass H.R. 1, the For the People Act, and H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. That is what brings us here today, and so thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to introduce now our first speaker, Ms. Coretta Brown from the Young and the Politics, who has an announcement about an event coming up this weekend. Ms. Brown.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, cool. So my name is Coretta Brown, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Young and the Politics. And so we're out here today supporting our Texas Dems that went to Washington, D.C. to get the job done. They took the fight to the White House. Y'all give them a hand clap for doing that. Like, let's show them some love for that. But like Adrian said, tomorrow we're having a multi-county-wide voter registration drive. It's gonna be via block walk. We're out here asking you all, if you're a VDR, to sign up on our list, and we will call you and give you the details of how you can join in this multi-county-wide voter registration drive via block walk. We have about 6 counties already participating. We have a multiple amount of organizations, grassroots organizations that's participating. We want to show a massive turnout in celebration of our Texas Dems, and just to make sure that we reach voters, make sure that we know that their information is correct, and also make sure that we capture those unregistered voters and get them registered. So we appreciate your support. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. We have just been non-stop with activities across the state, and that is going to continue into the next session. Okay, next we will hear from Councilmember Paige Ellis, Austin City Council District 8. Take it away.
Thank you. How are y'all doing out there? Thought it was going to be cool, but no, it's still hot. I am Paige Ellis. I am on the Austin City Council, and I am proud to represent District 8, Southwest Austin, home of Barton Springs and the Greenbelt. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time outdoors, and you care a lot about the environment, and you deserve the freedom to vote. If you're a nurse, an essential worker, a first responder, putting in long hours to help us all fight this pandemic, you deserve the freedom to vote. Maybe you work more than one job. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's more like 3. And you ride the bus and it's hard to get to a polling place during the hours when they're open. But you know what? You deserve the freedom to vote. I represent the suburbs. That means there's a lot of soccer moms and band moms and ballet moms and dads. And if you work hard all day and still manage to get the kids to soccer practice on time, you deserve the freedom to vote. Today is the end of Governor Abbott's special session, and there was nothing special about it. Today is also the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, and that act made a promise that every American has the freedom to vote without barriers. Now, tomorrow, Governor Abbott wants to call everyone back here to once again try to chip away at our freedom to vote. But this time, it's worse. Because now, as the pandemic starts to spike again, and as our kids are getting ready to go back to school, he wants a ban on mask mandates. Are you kidding me? Friends, there's no reason to come back here tomorrow. I'd like to close by saying that I do believe in a better tomorrow, and it's not in that building behind me. It's in you. And I believe that this fight is important and worthy. I believe in a better tomorrow and a better Texas because I believe in you. Thank you for your activism, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellis. Next, we will hear from the president of the Austin NAACP, a man that I've had the privilege of organizing a couple of these events with and attending quite a few more that he's had a hand in, Mr. Nelson Linder.
Let me first say good evening. It's hot, but it could have been hotter, right? I want to thank you for being here at this very serious time. I want to thank Public Citizen and all of you as well for being here today. You know, this is a very serious occasion, and I always look for perspective because I want to convey where we are. Yeah, it's the anniversary, 56 years. It certainly is. But I was thinking back about when this act was first signed into law. I'm a Georgia guy. I was about 7 years old. There was conflict, of course, civil rights, violence everywhere. We were entering the Vietnam War, and a space trap called Ranger actually crashed into the moon. A lot going on, right? But nothing prepared me for this. Because I left Georgia in 1976. If you told me that in 2021, I would watch an insurrection in America, I'd say, you gotta be kidding me. And what I'm saying is, if you examine the roles in 1965, and I did, the voting rights bill passed in the Senate by a 77-19 vote on May 26, 1965. In the House, a month later, it passed by 333 to 85. Fast forwarded in 2021, we can't seem to find one vote that's positive. This country is deadlocked on insanity. How do we explain that? Because the goal is to get folks to vote in high numbers. We can protest, we can run and hide and run and protest, but basically we need more votes. And I get the impression we don't really see the urgency that this whole state or nation is at stake. So what I want to do as I go forward is make sure I talk to people all over the state and the country about what this means to black and brown people and every decent person. Because I don't seem to understand the urgency of the day. And I believe if they recognize what's at stake, they're gonna vote in high numbers. And at the end of the day, folks, at the end of the day, we need more votes. I think Texas is ripe for change, but it can't just be a protest or a conversation. It's gotta be the urgency that this country, which never had equal voting rights anyway, is on the verge of being seriously in disarray. So as we go forward, celebrate this anniversary, but look for insights going forward so we can define what we're fighting. It's not just opposition. There are folks in this country right now who don't respect democracy, and they will turn this country upside down. That's the real enemy. So as you engage, let your friends know what this really means. So they will turn out and vote in high numbers and make sure that we take control of this country democratically, because there's so much at stake. Again, thank you for coming out this evening. Please pass the word about this urgency. We can win these battles, but we have to have a good offense. And you gotta help me convey to everybody I know, and you know, all over the state, that we have to vote in these elections. And if we don't, this democracy, which is not yet complete, this idea, is at stake. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Linder. Our next speaker is Archbishop Sterling Lance from the Mount Calvary Bible Church.
First, let me say thank you so much for being out here in the heat. It says that there are those who are passionate about doing the right thing, the right way, for the right reason, expecting the right results. They want to benefit everybody. And I think that it is a statement that's being made today that we must continue to make from this point forward. You know, I was about I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, when some tragic things had happened in the state I was born in. I didn't leave the state because of that. It took me another 10, 15 years before I left the state and come to Texas. But I thought I was leaving behind me all of the shenanigans of the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, and that whole crowd who wanted to keep the South, the good old South, and make certain that certain people would never have a right to anything that the Constitution has to say. So when I moved here, I thought I was in a different setting. And to be honest with you, I was very pleased to be here in Austin and in the state of Texas, until I noticed that some of those old boys must have moved here behind me. And so now the same things that they were talking about in the great state that I was born in, we're now talking about it here again. And I just never thought I would have to face this again. I have three things I want to say to you, and they're very basic and very fundamental. One, if you don't speak up, don't expect anyone to speak up for you. One. Two, if you expect someone to speak on your behalf, you may be right to a point, but eventually they will get to a point where it only affects them. So therefore, not only must you not wait to speak up, you must also ensure that the people who are speaking for us in this building behind us and in DC really represent us. And the third thing is this: no elected official has the right to choose who votes for them. Listen to me carefully. You don't get an opportunity to choose who's going to vote for you. Let me say it again. You do not get an opportunity to choose who is going to vote for you. All you can do is raise up your banner and ensure that people know what you stand for. And if you don't stand for the people, then you should be voted out. But you don't get a chance to fix it by suppressing those individuals who had a right to vote from the beginning. It should be criminal. It should be criminal. It should be illegal. Criminal is as any other crime that you will find that is a felony. It should be a criminal act to try and suppress the free will vote of the people of this country and of this state. I want to file a lawsuit, but I also want to file some criminal charges against these individuals who are trying to keep me from voting. I don't know if I have any standing in the court or not, but what I do know is that I can keep raising my voice and saying that I'm not pleased, God is not pleased, and the people are not pleased. Therefore, you either leave or you follow our directions. Are y'all getting this or what? So just repeat with me as I take my seat. Elected officials, you do not get an opportunity or the right to choose who votes for you. Thank you very much. Let's take this message on the road.
Thank you, Reverend Lance. Our next speaker has been a champion for voting rights for a long time, especially during this special session. Travis County Commissioner Precinct 1, Jeff Trevelyan.
Good evening. I just came to tell you some of what you've already heard. First thing I want you to always remember is that your vote is your voice. First time I had a chance to vote, I got a chance to vote against a guy who announced in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where 3 civil rights workers were killed, that he was running for president under a states' rights plank. And what that meant to me and my friends was that if in 1980 those civil rights workers would have been killed that day, he would not have used the resources of the FBI to bring them to justice. He would have allowed Mississippi to do what Mississippi has done for the last 200 years. Not acceptable. But we've got to know what our issues are. It is important to me to see young people here involved as well. Yeah, let's clap for our young people. Because you really have to know what is at stake. In the state that I was born in, they asked things to qualify you to vote, like, what is the number of bubbles in a bar of soap? What are the numbers of jelly beans in a jar? Ridiculous things to make sure that we wouldn't vote. In 1962, when I was born, my father was 32 years old. He had his undergraduate degree. He had served in the Army for 4 years. He got his master's degree. He was a certified teacher. My mother had her undergraduate degree, was a certified teacher, but in Mississippi, they could not vote. The people that are trying to disenfranchise us today are the grandchildren of the White Citizens Council that tried to keep us from voting in 1962. It's important to recognize that if this legislature gets what it wants, my father, who couldn't vote in 1962, well, now he's 90, and now he shouldn't drive anymore, so he won't have a driver's license. So if he doesn't have his driver's license, who will make sure that he has the opportunity to continue to vote? The types of things that are being recommended will directly disenfranchise him today as they did in 1962. Are we going to stand for that? Are we going to sit and watch? Or are we going to fight? There are still over 50 counties in the state of Texas where DPS doesn't even have a place where you can get a voter ID. Are we going to stand for that? Are we going to sit for that? Are we going to fight? Do you know that they want to replace trained county officials with anybody that comes, the cyber ninjas? What is a cyber ninja? Do we want to have people who are trained to make sure that our votes are counted? Or do we want mobs to come in and pick who they want to select as our president? It is important that we recognize that the types of rules that are being put on the books will disenfranchise people. What do you really expect when you allow militia to carry guns into a voting line? What do you really expect? What do you expect when the governor does not want you to pass out water or chairs to a 90-year-old who wants to vote? You know, my grandfather used to tell me that common sense isn't common. Well, Texas has a new standard. Our governor is trying to make common sense illegal. Do we want common sense to be illegal? Do we want to sit for that? Do we want to stand for that? We've got to fight. It is important that we work together, that we build together, that we don't stop working. You ask me why I became a Democrat, I'll tell you why. In 1962, the year I was born, a gentleman named James Meredith wanted to go to Ole Miss. He was blocked by the governor of the state of Mississippi to go into Ole Miss until John F. Kennedy sent the National Guard to make sure he got in. We wanted a president who would use his power to protect people. In 1963, George Wallace stood in the doors of the University of Alabama so the minorities could not go there. Again, John F. Kennedy sent troops to make sure that everybody had access. And then again in 1964, when the civil rights workers were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi, Lyndon Johnson sent the FBI to find out and bring to justice the folks who killed them. We have to have a government that protects regular folks. Yes. We have to have a government that makes sure that our grid is solid, our electric grid is solid. We have to have a governor who protects our children. We have to have a governor who is going to make sure that all of us form a more better union, work together, and build what Texas can be, not the country club that they're running now. Thank you.
you, Commissioner. Next, we're going to hear from two people who wished they could be here today, but could not. We're going to see some pre-recorded videos. The first one is from a gentleman who played football for the Tennessee Titans, but you probably know him better as a Baylor Bear, or as a congressman from the Dallas area, Colin Allred. And our second speaker is somebody who some of you may have seen here last Saturday, but it's not Willie Nelson. So let's see what we got.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight and giving me the opportunity to speak with you virtually. I'm Congressman Colin Allred, and I'm incredibly proud to represent the 32nd District of Texas. But before North Texans sent me to Congress, I was a voting rights lawyer, and I got my start right here in Texas doing voter protection. I saw firsthand that before SB 7 and SB 1 and HB 3 were introduced, Texas was the state where it was the hardest in the nation to cast your ballot. And instead of getting to work on the most pressing issues facing our state right now, like weatherizing our grid or expanding Medicaid, Republicans in our legislature are doing all they can to make it harder for Texans to vote. I am grateful to the Texas House Democrats who used every tool at their disposal to stop SB 7 from becoming law. They succeeded in shining a light on the most egregious provisions included in that bill and allowed Texans to pressure their representatives into removing the most blatant efforts to support the big lie. But the current legislation Republicans in Austin are pushing will still disenfranchise thousands of Texans. We have to do everything we can to stop it from becoming law and to keep pressuring the Senate in DC to act. You know, here in Texas, we're coming off an election with record turnout that the top Republican elections official called smooth and secure. Republicans in Austin are pushing these restrictions not because they're necessary, not to protect election integrity or restore faith in our democracy, but in order to support the big lie. The 2020 election was stolen, and to take advantage of an opportunity to lock in power for themselves. These efforts, to quote my former colleague and mentor, Congressman John Lewis, are a brazen attempt to take us back to another time and another place, where not everyone's voice was heard in our democracy, and where the votes of certain people didn't count. We are certainly at an inflection point now. Centuries from now, Americans will study in history books about this time and about what happened to our democracy in this moment. And we have the opportunity to decide the outcome of those history books. We can choose to affirmatively expand voting rights, set national standards so our democracy doesn't look radically different from one state to another, and end partisan gerrymandering so the voice of every American is reflected in our government. We can pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to reestablish protections put in place 56 years ago today by the Voting Rights Act that were gutted by the Supreme Court in 2013. But I want to be clear, we cannot choose one at the expense of the other. We have to do both. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act on its own is not enough to beat back the tide of voter suppression laws that have already passed across the country and that are spreading like wildfire. And passing legislation that both affirmatively expands and protects the right to vote will give Americans a sword and a shield to protect our democracy. A sword to affirmatively expand voting rights by passing legislation that will allow Americans to register to vote early by mail on election day without interference, and to make sure their voices are heard and are not diluted through partisan gerrymandering. And a shield to protect against undemocratic attacks by reinstating pre-clearance standards through H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We have to do everything we can to make sure the conclusion of those history books finds that while American democracy may have walked up to a precipice in this period, that we didn't go over it, that we didn't go back to that dark place where only certain Americans had a voice in our democracy. But instead, the story can be that we came together, not as Republicans or Democrats, but as Americans to shore up our democracy and took the necessary steps to make sure that American democracy remained the gold standard for democracies around the world who look to us. To do so, we have to keep up with the public pressure and do all we can to pass federal legislation that makes sure our democracy is intact. We have to keep fighting as hard for our democracy as they're fighting to take it away. So thank you all so much for having me tonight. This is the most important issue facing our nation right now, and I'm so grateful To each and every one of you for making your voices heard and for doing your part to protect our democracy, not just for us, but for every future generation of Americans that comes after us.
Big thanks to Public Citizen and all of the allied organizations that have helped to put on today's rally commemorating the 56th anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and giving us all an opportunity to organize and push for the Voting Rights Act of 2021, which is known as the For the People Act. This bill, if we can get it passed through the Senate, is going to do more than anything else to roll back voter suppression and voter suppression attempts in Texas, in Georgia, in Florida, in states all across the country, and is going to expand access to the ballot box through automatic voter registration, Election Day as a national holiday, getting dark money out of our politics, and ending gerrymandering by replacing it with independent, nonpartisan redistricting commissions. And as we saw in 1965, it took a lot of public pressure to help President Johnson have the power to get that passed through Congress. The public pressure that you're providing right now on President Biden and those Senate Democrats is absolutely essential to getting the For the People Act passed in this year. So please keep it up. Do not stop. Fight on every front and push without rest until we see this through. Thank you all for what you're doing. We're grateful. Adios.
Thank you, Congressmen Allred and O'Rourke. There were a lot of folks that we invited who wanted to be here, who couldn't be here, who sent their well wishes. We want to thank them and their offices and their staffs for everything that they've done for us. Our next speaker is the Texas State Director with All on the Line, Ms. Genevieve Van Cleve.
What a good-looking crowd. You know what I love about this town, even on Friday afternoon when you're supposed to be finding love and getting a cocktail? You are here. You are here fighting for voting rights, so thank you. All right, there were two of me, now there's just one. So thank you for being here. Now let's get on to this speech. I worked really hard on it, so I want to make sure you hear me okay. All right, it is an honor to be with you on the 56th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. How about the LBJ presidency for twisting those arms in D.C.? We have a long history in Texas of voter suppression and racism, but that history pales in comparison to the resolve, the grit, and the fight of Texans who stood up, stand up, will stand up, even on a Friday afternoon for voting rights, and we are blessed to be here in that fight. And let's thank the organizers, public officials, interns, lady who answers the phone, the regular folks that have made Texas's voting rights fight the fight of the nation now. Y'all are some of the most powerful people in this country. It is because of you that the For the People Act has risen from the ashes. It is because of you that the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is getting longer, not shorter. These bills are alive and kicking because our Texas Democratic Caucus went up to D.C. and told them your stories, your concerns, and it's working. Yeah, so give yourselves a round of applause. Fist bump the person next to you. It's worth it. Voting rights and freedom is about love, essentially, which is what we do on Friday afternoons in Austin, Texas. It's funny to me how Republicans are the party of small government until you start talking about voting, vaccines, and vaginas. Then they get very involved, you know. They've threatened to take our tax dollars from schools, cities, and counties who have the temerity to follow the science, let you vote after your shift, and try to reduce the number shot by cops. They will take your tax money away for local government. And that, my friends, is nuts. I tell you what, they're so scared of voter turnout, they've enlisted the help of the Heritage Foundation Action Fund and other nefarious dark money villains to make legislation that's so messed up, not even Republican legislatures can seem to read the whole bill or remember anything that's in it. They just keep saying, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. Of course, we know what the truth is. We know exactly who it will affect. The same people it always affects, our black and brown brothers and sisters. We know exactly who it'll affect, the very old and the very young. We are not new to the voter suppression game, and we aren't buying the line that they are selling. Under the leadership of Governor Abbott and the rest of the Big Lie gang, Texas has become hotter, meaner, and dumber. Thousands of dead and dying because of COVID. Hundreds froze to death during a winter storm. Kids heading back to school with no mask. And a history class that might as well be called the Great White Hope, because there ain't any history being taught in that school. The only thing growing faster than the fatalities and injustice at the hands of Republican majoritarians are their campaign bank accounts. Let me tell you something, they are filled to the brim with oil and gas money. They are filled to the brim from people who ain't around here and don't care about you or your family. I tell you what, if you're not in the business of making the lives of everyday Texans better, I just don't know why you'd show up in this building in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, what do they think they are up to? Which brings me to my next point. If you look at the B side of voting rights, you find redistricting. I know, it's happening. Voting rights and redistricting go hand in hand. First, you gotta make sure people can vote, and then you gotta make sure your vote counts as the same as your neighbor's vote does, right? That's the way it's supposed to work. Show of hands. Did y'all know that redistricting is where all the money and power is divvied up for a decade? Show of hands, ladies and gentlemen. Now you can raise your hand because now you know. It is the last smoke-filled room in Texas politics, and I aim to shine a little light in that room. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you. Did y'all know that Texas hasn't drawn one redistricting map since 1965 that wasn't in violation of the Voting Rights Act? So whether Democrats or Republicans are in charge, you know the people that get the short end of the stick, the same people that have always gotten the short end of the stick, and that's gotta stop. I encourage everyone who can hear my ridiculous voice to get ready to use yours. There will be hearings in the weeks to come. They won't be easy to sign up for. They will not be convenient. They will change the times, the dates. They'll tell you you can't sit down. You gotta hop on one leg and count the soap bubbles. But if you're willing to come this far on the Friday afternoon, if you want to get to the root of the evil and the rot of this dumpster fire of a state we live in, then here's what you gotta do. You gotta hook up with All on the Line, right? They work on redistricting. Did you know that? League of Women Voters works on redistricting. Did you know that? The Texas Civil Rights Project works on redistricting. The Texas Democratic Party. I just scheduled trainings for them in a couple of weeks. I tell you what, it is time to get plugged in. It is one thing to cast a ballot, but if you can't vote out the fools that are in charge, no matter who they are, then it's not fair, it's not right, and it's not democratic. We have one shot per decade to do it. They don't like to tell you. Remember, they're not gonna make it easy, But if you join with some of the groups I talked about, if we talk after this and you're interested in redistricting, you will be connected and your voice will be heard. The difference in redistricting is this. It is litigious. It is where the lawyers go to make money and friends for a lifetime. And if they could have gotten it done, it would have already been done. The only way we hold on to this democracy, like Mr. Linder from the NAACP said, is we gotta work for it and fight for it, which means you gotta register to vote, you gotta vote, and hell, if you're here on a Friday afternoon, then you need to come to a redistricting training. Do not leave it to the number crunchers and high-paid consultants from DC and whoever else they got working in that smoke-filled room to speak for you. Only you know what your community needs. Only you. Somebody that looks like me, you don't want me in charge of your community. You gotta be in charge of your community, so help me arm you with the information and the tools. That's all I'm here to do. It's all for free, all right? So in closing, that's the fight we're in. And I've been thinking a lot about Frederick Douglass's speech after, I don't know, some Supreme Court case where Jim Crow was, you know, the law of the land. And how would you go out and address that crowd? Like, what hope could you offer? And I am certainly no Frederick Douglass, and just in case Trump is watching, he is in fact dead, right? He is definitely dead. But here's what he said that I really liked. And he probably didn't make it up because it was in the Bible, but here you go. Nobody knew or believed that Goliath was going to fall until he fell. They didn't believe when David walked in with his hand full of rocks, right? They didn't think that guy was going to do it. And maybe they don't think a Friday afternoon rally on voting rights ain't going to do it either. But Goliath is going to fall, and you're all going to be a part of it. I want to thank you for listening to me. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank my other panelists, and I tell you what, I love this state, and God bless Texas, and God bless you. Have a good afternoon.
All right, thank you, Genevieve. That was excellent. I already have a Texas mask, so you may want to get yours back. All right. Have to, on a somber note here, we have to acknowledge the passing of a great champion for labor rights, the president of the AFL-CIO, Richard Trumka, whose life and legacy will live on in work from his organization and from the organization of our next speaker, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But I'd like to remember some words from Mr. Trumka. He said, quote, "Without the right to vote, there is no democracy. Without the right to form a union, there is no democracy." And it's in that spirit that I would like to invite our next speaker, Ms. Rachel McGee with the Austin Central Labor Council.
Thank you. Good evening. Republican Senator Brian Hughes, the author of the Texas Election Integrity Bill, claims his bill makes it easier to vote and harder to cheat. But working families across Texas know the truth. Our Republican-controlled Texas legislature is making it harder for us to vote and easier for them to cheat. If lawmakers are truly interested in passing common sense reforms that protect the integrity of our elections, then they should make every effort to support the For the People's Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. Integrity is also the state of being whole and undivided. Working families question the integrity of our elections when they are being left out and excluded. If every vote counts, then why doesn't every voter count? Working class America needs voting to be more convenient, not less convenient. Voting during business hours is not possible for many working people because guess what? They're working. Limited voting hours and in-person only options are not sufficient because many working Americans are working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. For working families to have a voice in our democracy, lawmakers must make voting easier and more accessible. Voting hours must be expanded and more convenient ways to vote must be allowed, such as proactive mail-in voting and secure drive-through voting. These are the kind of common sense reforms America's working families need. These are the voting reforms organized labor is demanding. And this is why we need Congress to pass the For the People's Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And now, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Mayor Steve Adler. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Adler and the Austin City Council for adopting a resolution to support voting rights legislation and for leading by example by giving city employees paid time off in order to exercise their right to vote. Mayor Adler.
You know, there is nothing wrong with this state that can't be fixed at the ballot box. And remember, elections have consequences because there is nothing right about what's going on in this state that can't be destroyed at the ballot box too. There is nothing more precious to democracy than the ability to be able to vote. You know, here we are in Texas, in this capital. Texas has played such a huge role in this question of voting. It was a Texan 56 years ago that signed the Voting Rights Act. It is a Texan today that is most responsible for the frontal attack on that Voting Rights Act and those voting right guarantees. In between those two, this path of Texans, are you. The question is, why is it that you are here today? It's Friday afternoon, as Genevieve pointed out. Great speech, Genevieve. It is Friday afternoon. The faithful have gathered. And the question is, does your presence here today ensure that the Texas legislature will not ultimately pass that horrid bill that is before them, presented by the governor? I don't know the answer to that question. But I do know that if you are not here, then it is guaranteed that nothing will change. We need to applaud the Texas representatives that are in Washington, D.C. They stand for what is right about Texas and just about Texas and what is wonderful about Texans. And the entire country has watched the Texans in action in Washington over the last month. And the question asked about them in Washington is also, does it really make a difference that they go to Washington and they stop this special session for a month, or 2, or 5, or 12, or for however long it is? And their answer is the same. If they don't do what they're doing, then it is guaranteed that nothing will change. Your presence here today is incredibly important because the right to vote is incredibly important. It's an honor to be here today with you, Archbishop. It's wonderful to be here with you today as well. Commissioner Trevelyan, my colleague on the council. Paige Ellis, President Linder, we are the choice between those points of the arc in Texas. The President, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and our current governor. And it is you that are shining the light on the correct path. Thank you for being here and what you're doing.
Thank you, Mayor Adler. All right, I think now if we are able, we're gonna flip the screen over now, and we should. Oh, there we go. Hey! All right. Can you guys hear us? Can you see us? All right. One more time. Take it away.
Hello, my fellow activists back in Texas at the Capitol. Thank you. Thank you for supporting us. We have a lot of representatives here who want to speak to you and thank you for doing all the wonderful things you're doing. We can't do it without you, and so I want to present to you our State Representative, Barbara Hawkins. Barbara.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Thank you so much. You know, it's been a journey for us, but we couldn't do it without all of y'all. We're so happy to be part of your event today. So we're going to start off with our dean, the person we love, the person that not only represents her district, but represents so many other things. And that's our notorious Miss T from Houston, Texas. That's anything we are missing you in Texas.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, we have been on a journey up here. When we got to Washington, D.C., we were thinking of the two bills that impact the Voting Rights Act, things that's going to really help us in Texas, was moving right along. Only to find that they were both in the ditch. So what we did was, we took 57 spark plugs. We screwed into that machinery here, and we fired it up. We got a chance to go and see congressmen, senators. We talked to employees. We talked to aides. We talked to sisters. We talked to the media. We talked to everyone to make our case. We wanted them to know one thing, that voting is a constitutional right that belongs to all of us. And just because we have to be a member of people of color in the state of Texas doesn't mean that our rights are chipped away at. So what we're doing up here, we're doing God's work. We're doing work that helps all of us. We want to put to bed once and for all, with our work up here, the struggles of having to refight the struggles year in, decade in, always looking around, finding that we got to fight the same fights. We deserve better. You deserve better. And that's why we're here. We want to make sure that years to come, that our children will not have to fight these same fights again. We want to be able to assure that when people go to the polls, they can cast their vote. And they can cast them without having to stay in long lines. They can send their mail ballot in without having fear of being prosecuted. And when people are at the polls, they don't have the fear of people intimidating them. They can go in and cast their vote without fear. That's what we're doing up here. And you know what? There's no way possible that we could ever be able to do any of these things without people like you back home supporting us, rooting for us, and making sure that people in your neighborhood, in your groups, and in your organizations all across the state of Texas understand what the fight is all about. We're in this fight together. And you know what? We got a lot of fight. And this is one time that the little dogs are going to win. So we're gonna putting all our muscle and effort in, but we can't thank you enough for all of the things that you're putting in. You're putting in muscle, you're putting in your money, you're putting in your time, you're putting in your prayers, you're putting in your support. What else could we ask from friends like you? But listen, we're in it for the long haul. We may be beaten down, but let me tell you, we fighting back. We scratching up. We're coming on top. And the only thing we ask God to do, He don't have to move the mountain out, just give us the power to climb it. And with supporters like you, we're gonna climb that mountain until we get victory. And victory's gonna be not only for you and for me, but it's gonna be for all of us for years and years to come. And that's what we want. We want a country that recognizes that the Constitution speaks to them, that the Constitution supports them. And just because they have to be persons of color, it shouldn't matter. What matters, we're all Americans. And we want to make sure that that message is sent loud and clear from the top of the mountaintop to the top of the hills, to the lowest of the valley, to the deepest of the sea, across the ocean. We want to put a spark across this country. We want people to get in this fight with us. And we want to put pressure on this Congress to know that they can't stop this year until those bills are passed. And they got to be passed for the people of this country. Thank you. I know y'all heard that, right? Y'all feel that fight? So now, that was our oldest serving Democrat. Now I want to bring to you our youngest serving Democrat, our freshman from Dallas, Texas, Jasmine Crockett.
Hey y'all. So I know that not just myself, but my colleagues behind me would love to be with you right now. We would love nothing more than to be with you, especially since we know that times are so hard back home and throughout this country. We have real issues that we really need to be working on. Sadly enough, the Republicans have decided that they don't care about the people, and they started with this stupid voting bill. So let's talk about it. Sadly enough, we are here on the anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act. Why am I having to fight for something that allegedly was guaranteed to me over 50 years ago? That's the real question that we need to be asking. And so now we have all these distractions to pretend as if Democrats don't care about teachers, when we do. We're always on the front lines for teachers. Pretending like we don't care about COVID, when we do. We're always on the front lines when it comes to COVID, when it comes to science, when it comes to evidence-based solutions. They're trying to distract you. And I want you to stay the course, because we don't get COVID relief. We don't get healthcare relief. We don't get anything until we get voting rights. And they're trying to take that from us. And let me tell you, we're not going to have that on our watch. And we know that we would not be able to do what we do here without you. It's only 150 people that are elected to represent 30 million people in the state of Texas. And we're your voices. They want to silence us, but we refuse to be silenced. We decided to come to the only place that had power over the radical Republicans, and that was up here in DC. And we're not giving up, because y'all ain't gave up on us. And so we want you to stay in this fight with us, because we will make sure that we get real results. We're not playing partisan politics, not when it comes to people's lives. Right now it's life or death. Right now our governor is killing people, period. Point blank, no questions asked. If we all made sure that everyone could get to the ballot box, I can guarantee you he wouldn't have his seat. That's why he keeps calling these sessions back to back to back, because he knows that if people have an option to exercise their right to vote, he is gone. He is toast, because we need a real leader. We need someone that cares about our economy. We need someone that cares about healthcare. We need someone that cares about our children, that cares about education, and is going to fight for what makes sense for Texans. Not pandering to a radical right base, not pandering to white supremacists. And yeah, I said it, and I'll say it over and over and over. Because guess what? The KKK was morally wrong back then, just like the insurrectionists is morally wrong today, and will be morally wrong tomorrow. And regardless of your attempts to whitewash history, we're not having it on our watch, because that's not who we are. So I thank you so much, because you guys give us the strength to keep going. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to continue to do everything within our power to fight for your rights.
Hey out there, I must say, oops, there it is. I'm surrounded by stars. We talk about the Beyoncés of the world, the Jay-Z, all them folks, but I'm surrounded by stars. And I want to bring up to the podium my colleague, someone who's also a freshman. We got some outstanding freshmen, y'all. And that's Liz Campos from San Antonio, Texas.
Good evening, everyone. I want to go ahead and echo our dean, what she said, because we are here doing God's work, and we will not let them bring us down. As a matter of fact, this is just making us tougher, and we're going to continue to fight, and we're not going to give up, because we're doing it for all of you. We are here for you, we're here for our families, and we're going to continue this fight. We're fighting for democracy, and we're not going to give up. No matter what it takes, we're here to the end, but we cannot do it without you. Waking up every morning and seeing the support that y'all are giving us keeps us going. Again, we're doing this for you. Thank you so much, and keep up the fight.
Hey, y'all, my Latina sisters is showing up bad, as they say. Now I want to bring up somebody. Hey, you sit next to this lady, you talking about a powerhouse. She from that place called Denton, Texas. And her name is Representative Michelle Beckman.
Oh, that was an announcement for everybody. I don't know quite what to say. I sat in that elections committee and saw every variation of these bills. And one of the reasons we are here is because we don't know what version we're going to see. We don't know. We know it's going to be bad. Are they going to be throwing people in jail for clerical errors? That could happen, because we saw that. We saw, and I know the election judges, and I'm pretty sure that they are not doing things on purpose. And I am here because I can read that bill and I can see that it's racist. And I can see how it is going to hurt the people of my community. And that is why I'm here staying with my colleagues, because if I don't do it, who is it going to be? But I am so happy for all of y'all back in Texas sending the emails and sending the notifications on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, however you send it to us. The positivity is what keeps us going, because we are sure getting some negativity from the other side. But we are here to fight, and we are not going to keep fighting. We are going to keep fighting until these bills are not on the table and not in the version that they are. And if you want us to come back, you better start negotiating. This is for you, Greg Abbott. You better start talking to us. These people here just get me riled up. When you start talking to us, we will start negotiating with you. But we will not negotiate with the terrorists. Thank you.
Hey, folks out there, from where I'm from, they call it tell it like it is. Now I want to bring forward one of our sweet young men from the Florida House. He's from that great place, El Paso, Texas, Art Fieri. He's on the screen. Art? Are you with us, Art? guess what? I guess our screen ain't working. So then I'm gonna call somebody else up. And, this dude, one of those fierce guys from Houston, Texas, who put up his dukes and said, we're gonna stay in this fight. And that's Representative Jarvis Johnson!
Hey. They called everybody else. I think everybody signed up. I didn't sign up, but I'm here and ready to fight. We're here in Washington, D.C. This is what we're here to do. We're not going to give up. We got to keep going. We got to keep fighting because they're coming for us and we're unapologetic. We love Texans, all Texans, not just some Texans, but all Texans. So we're here to fight. But these guys standing behind me were the best crew you ever want to see. And we're going to keep fighting because we got a clear and strong message. We're going to take Texas and make it blue with these type of antics that they keep putting forth that we will not tolerate. So keep up the good work, guys. Barbara, don't ever call me up again without telling me I was going to come out. I'm totally unprepared.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna wrap this thing up. I need to call my buddy up though, John Rosenthal. Come on up here, Representative Rosenthal. Come on, Rosenthal. You know what? You always gotta have a statesman, and here he is.
Thank you. Y'all, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for activists like you. So, elect an activist, and this is what you get. People fighting for you, fighting for your rights. So I'm just gonna say thank you for your heart. Thank you for your fight. Thank you for being in this fight with us. We couldn't do it without you, and we are just grateful for your support and your partnership. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you so much. We're so pleased to be with you this evening because, again, stay with us through this fight. We're here to the end and until we win. Thank you so much.
One more time for our quorum breaking D's. All right. I'm waving at them. I know they can't see me. Okay. Our next speaker, we have a statement from Congressman Lloyd Doggett, one of our hometown heroes here, longtime champion for voting rights. We have a statement from Ms. Vanessa Batts-Flores.
Hola a todos, muy buenas tardes a todos. So I may be new to you, the person who I'm helping serve you is not. I'm the new Representative Vanessa Batts-Flores, here today on behalf of Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who represents communities from North Boston all the way to South San Antonio. He understands the right that helps preserve our other rights is the right to vote. Texas has long been ground zero of voter suppression, making it hard to register, harder to vote, and crooked political maps have a long, sad history. One study found that our state is already the most difficult place to vote in the entire country. Based on the record turnout of Texans last year who overcame so many barriers, state Republican leaders concluded that they just had not made voting difficult enough. Now they seek to erect even more outrageous, destructive barriers to voting. But it was a Texan who took key steps towards progress. And today marks the 56th anniversary of Lyndon B. Johnson signing the Voting Rights Act. Yet, it feels like we are still fighting many of the same battles. Fortunately, we see some progress. With Congressman Doggett's strong support, the House passed H.R. 1, the For the People Act, the most significant voting rights expansion and democracy reform legislation in more than 50 years. Now the Senate must act, and they must do their part to protect the voting rights of all Americans. We salute the courageous Texas legislators who bravely chose to personally bring this struggle to Washington. Our voices collectively matter to protect every Texan and to protect the health of a democracy. Every neighbor, every business must stand up. Silence is not an option. You either condone suppression or stand up for democracy. Let's keep demanding Governor Abbott and Republican lawmakers to halt their efforts in voter suppression and to focus on real priorities. Suppress COVID, not the vote. Let's fight the virus of ignorance and of hate. Let's continue to work together to register and organize our community. We can triumph for a better Texas, porque juntos podemos. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bass-Flores, and thank you, Congressman Doggett. Our next speaker is another hometown progressive hero from Austin City Council, District 4, Mr. Greg Kassar.
Hey, y'all. So a lot of times at these rallies, you'll get chants from me, but today I'm coming without chants. I'm coming with a message of hope and a message of thanks. I know that this work can be so exhausting for those of us who are organizing every day, who host rally after rally, who have been here session after session after session. Whether they're coming after abortion rights, or whether it's the Show Me Your Papers law, or rewarding the fossil fuel companies that failed us in the storm and who are causing the climate crisis, whether it's coming for our voting rights, whether it's coming for workers' rights or trans kids' rights, we're just here over and over and over again. And I just want to come with a message of just how happy I am to be with y'all and to be a part of this together with you, because they want to wear us out. And that's exactly why there's no way in hell we're getting worn out. Right? Because this fight is long. When I think of the voting rights that we're here to defend, and when I think about those heroes who fought for those, not for one legislative session or two, not in one state or two, not for a year or two, but for decades, I'm reminded that this fight is long, and that it's not about one legislative session or two. And no matter how exhausting it can feel, that the people with the most political power in this state, instead of just helping us, that they're targeting the poorest among us, that they're targeting the people most in need, instead of letting that exhaust us, it should drive us and know that it's because they have political power but not the real power. And that the real power is here with us, that that's what they're scared of and they want us to give up. And so I just want to send a message to you that I'm not giving up because I know y'all aren't giving up. And no matter how exhausting it might be to have another special session, and another another election after another election, that there's no way in hell we're giving up here in Texas, and that I'm here with y'all, and I know y'all are here with me as we work in this in solidarity. That's what got our House Democrats out to DC. That's what's kept our House Democrats fighting, has been their bravery, but their bravery as part of our movement. And so I'm just so proud to be a progressive Texan alongside you all, the organizers, the activists, the people who are just not giving up. And I believe that we will win. Y'all believe it? Yeah. All right, I said no chance, but now I feel like we should end a chant. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
All right. We are going to close it out tonight with our next generation of advocates. From Texas Rising, we have Jeffrey Clemens, Amanda Garcia, Rick Galvan, and Isabel Herrera. Come on up, y'all.
Howdy, y'all. How are you? My name is Isabel Herrera, and I'm here with Texas Rising. I'm a student leader at St. Edward's University, right across the lake over there. Texas Rising is a project of the Texas Freedom Network that focuses on building the political power of young Texans and LGBTQ youth across our wonderful state. So I stand here with a crazy sense of deja vu. We've been here before. It's so great to see everyone out here. I'm so elated everyone could make it, and I do hate to say it, but we shouldn't have to be here today. My peers and I have spent countless days and poured so much of our energy into protesting and testifying against bill after bill that further marginalizes some of the most vulnerable members of our community. I hope today serves as a reminder to our representatives that it is their responsibility to represent every single person, every single one of us under this dome. It is their responsibility to pass and enact legislation that benefits their constituents best. Not their corporate donors, not people who look exactly like them.
In 2019, my hometown of El Paso, Texas was senselessly attacked due to white supremacy and a sense of patriotism. There was no special session. In 2020, COVID hit Texas, COVID hit the states, and there was no special session, and there still is no special session. Over 50,000 Texans have died. In 2021, a freak winter storm hit Texas and left many Texans helpless, others dead. And there is still no special session. Now, on the eve of the second special session of this season, I am here to remind you that our governor does not care about the people he is supposed to represent. We are all here yet again because he would rather play a silly little game because he did not get his way the first 2 times. Governor Abbott's priorities are evidently jaded, and we will not sit here and patiently wait for him to play nice while our voting rights are under attack, while our communities are under attack. I'm a big believer in the power of people. I'm a big believer in the power of young people. I'm so proud and inspired by everyone out here who has been out here, who continues to be out here fighting for what is right. For a more just Texas, it is our responsibility to preserve our democracy. We are no longer asking, we are demanding equality for every Texan. So let's keep making good trouble, because we are absolutely not backing down. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Garcia, and I'm a student here at UT Austin and an organizer with Texas Rising. And we're here today because people are scared, but it's not us. Conservative legislators and people in power are scared of us. They're scared of the power that we have when we organize, and when we advocate, and when we vote. We are angry, and we are tired of being neglected by our state's leadership, or lack thereof. Because for the past year and a half, Texans have felt such an immense amount of loss at the hands of a botched pandemic response. And just a few months ago, thousands more suffered through a deadly winter storm because those in power prioritized energy profits over people. This is personal. There is blood on the hands of our conservative Texas legislatures. People did not have to suffer, but they did, because Governor Abbott and the rest of his conservative leadership failed to focus on the things that really affect Texans. Instead of fixing the power grid, instead of expanding vaccine access to the communities that need it most, instead of providing equitable health care, they instead choose to host a special legislative session meant to suppress our votes. It's such a sick and twisted irony that we're here on the 56th anniversary of President Johnson's passage of the Voting Rights Act, that we're here today fighting for what should be our most basic access to democracy. The only fraud occurring in these elections is robbing people of access to a fair, equitable, and free vote. But bills like HB 6 and SB 7, bills that Abbott and the rest of his counterparts have been pushing for, disproportionately affect Texans of color, Texans with disabilities, Texans who work to provide for their families, Texans who find themselves wondering if contracting COVID is worth the risk of taking a trip to the polls. Our so-called leadership should not claim they care about Texan lives if they don't prioritize these most at-risk Texas communities. They should not dare to claim that they care about Texas lives if their focus is on further marginalizing these groups. So I'll say it again. It's because they fear our power. So don't give up. Let's continue to build up our communities, elevating our voices and fighting back. Because when we fight, we win. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Rick Galvan. I am from San Antonio, Texas. I'm a student at UT Austin, and I am the Central Texas Campus Organizer for Texas Rising. Back in 2019, on the heels of the 2018 midterm election, an election where young Texans turned out in record numbers, I stood here on these same steps with many of the folks here today, fighting back against a voter suppression bill called Senate Bill 9, very similar to the voter suppression of the bills today. And through the power of organizers, activists, and everyday people, we stopped Senate Bill 9 then, we stopped the voter suppression bills in May and in July, and we are going to stop every Jim Crow bill they throw at us next. We're not going to let these legislators give poll watchers unlimited access to our voting booths. We're not going to let these legislators purge registered voters from the voter rolls. And we're not going to let these legislators shut down our voting centers. In my work with Texas Rising, I often get told young people just need to turn out to vote more. Well, when I can't register to vote online, when I can't use my student ID as voter ID, or when the voting center at my school is shut down, wouldn't you get tired of jumping through hoops to vote too? But see, these voter suppression bills that we've seen all year long, and we'll see more of tomorrow, they don't address any of those issues. They just make it worse, all in the name of election security. But let's keep it simple, folks, because maybe these legislators just don't get it. Allowing people, making it easier for people to vote, but does not harm election security. All it does is threaten bad politicians' job security. The same state legislators pushing through these voter suppression bills consider themselves to be small government leaders. But when they say small government, clearly all they mean is having the government only work for a small group of people. There shouldn't be anything wrong with the largest counties in Texas doing what they know is best for their communities, especially when it comes to expanding Texans' rights to vote. And yet our small government state leaders want to dictate how Travis County, how Harris County, how Barrett County, and how Dallas County operate, and who those counties should allow to vote. That's not upholding our liberty to vote. That is a government overreach whose only goal is to bar black and brown voters, voters with disability, and working class voters from the voting booth. It's time for our state leaders to stop listening to Jim Crow and start working for the people of Texas. The people demand and deserve a reliable electric grid, good health care, strong public schools, high-paying jobs, and social justice and equality for all, no more and no less. Now, I'll pass it off to my good friend, Jeffrey.
There's a storm coming in. I don't know if you can see behind you. There's dark clouds on the way, and I think that's incredibly fitting for the kind of fight that we're up against right now. My name is Jeffrey Clemens. I am the chair of the Austin College Student Commission, representing 100,000 students in this city, and also the student leader for Houston-Tillotson for Texas Rising. Tomorrow begins the second special session that Governor Abbott has called, not out of an overwhelming concern for the life of Texans, but in a puerile quest for vengeance and retribution because he did not get his way. He has poisoned the well of any good faith negotiation with his decision, a selfish, abusive, and cynical decision that now calls for us to meet the challenge of his vow to call session after session until our courageous Texas Democrats in Washington, D.C. bend at the knee to his will. The young people of this state have a message for him, however. We will show up day after day, week after week, and session after session to ensure that not a single item on this agenda of suppression hits the floor for either a debate or a vote. That includes any good piece of legislation along with the bad, because unfortunately even they are tainted by the political theater Republicans have decided to engage in, disregarding their responsibility to the constituents of this state who they claim to represent the majority of. But you cannot represent the majority of people in this state if you do not represent me, the people who are up here with me, and everyone in this crowd. If you decide to assault our voting rights, attack our trans peers, throw away our history, and don't address the raging pandemic, you hold up federal funds that are meant to help people in a desperate situation, such as when a winter storm hits and the power goes out, or if you're a month away from being put on the streets and there's an eviction moratorium that's about to expire. We have to restore the democratic foundation established by the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and build towards a more progressive future where Texas is a leader in progress rather than a bulwark against it. Look around you. Look at everyone here right now and think about how much power we have just in this space. And think about what we could do if we harness it in just the right way. That is why today I need everyone represented here, Public Citizen, Common Cause, the Texas NAACP, Texas Rising, Jolt, Move Texas, Sierra Club, and anyone who may be watching in this moment, to make a commitment and a public pledge that you will not just show up to rallies like this one, but you'll actually come back tomorrow and on Sunday and sign up to testify, that you're going to call your representatives, that you're going to make visits, that you're going to educate, advocate, and organize to ensure that the only agenda which gets passed this session is one that is for and by the people of this state. We need you to send your people from far and wide. We need you to send them day and night. And we need them in as many numbers as you can possibly muster for this moment. Because this is an all-hands-on-deck moment for our democracy, so we need to act like it. We're going to waste their time like they want to waste ours, and we're going to wear them out and show them that this is what democracy looks like. When you mess with Texas voters, you get the horns. All of them. Thank you.
One more time for our youth. Thank you all for being here. I I'm Adrian Shelley with Public Citizen. I want to close by recognizing two other elected officials who joined us tonight from the Court of Appeals, Judge Brandy and former State Representative Elliot Neistat. Thank you all. Thank you everybody for being here. Have a good night and let's get it done.